Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
The U.S. Supreme Court will not save a Minnesota age restriction on carrying guns. Let's talk this over with attorney Jeremy Rosenthal, who's back on the Davison Family Dentistry Newsmaker line this morning. Jeremy, welcome back to WHO Radio. Always a pleasure. Good morning.
Thanks, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great. So what is the issue here, Jeremy?
Okay, you got a 6-3 conservative advantage on the Supreme Court for the conservatives. And it's not a big surprise that you've got a lot of advocacy groups for Second Amendment rights that have been fairly bullish here, right? They're being very aggressive with pushing cases on the court to try to challenge restrictions that they think violate the Second Amendment. And they've obviously had some success. The Minnesota law, I believe, required that the minimum age to carry be 21. That law has been in effect since 2003. It was struck by the 8th Circuit in St. Louis, so that's your neck of the woods. And the U.S. Supreme Court basically saying we're not going to touch it, meaning that decision's final. The issue is that you've got 30 states where the law is 21 or over 18, and so you would think that a lot of those are either going to get challenged, or if Iowa is one of those states, it sounds like that's already been amended or in the process of being amended. So it's going to bring some pretty big changes nationwide.
And is this, Jeremy, ultimately a decision? It's always a balance. You do have the Second Amendment, and then courts have to decide if you can put any kind of restrictions on the Second Amendment. And so what did the St. Louis court say that said, look, 21, that's not constitutional, basically?
The St. Louis court was very blunt. They said there's no age. We're reading the Second Amendment, and we don't see an age limit in there. That's pretty literal. Now, and to your point, you're exactly correct. Anytime we're litigating over the Bill of Rights or something that we would call in the legal profession a fundamental right, anytime you're litigating that, I mean, there's always going to be boundaries. You have the right to freedom of speech, but you don't have the right to go yell fire in a theater. You can't make what's called a true threat. You're allowed, the Second Amendment says you have the right to keep and bear arms. So somewhere between carrying sticks and stones and enriching uranium, somewhere in there's a line that we're not allowed to cross, right? And again, it's not in the Second Amendment that I can't, try to make a nuclear weapons facility in my backyard, but I'm pretty sure I can. And where's the line, right? So that's always sort of the tricky balance that the government has when they want to restrict firearm ownership. They have to show a very narrowly tailored and specific interest when they want to do these things, and they fell short here.
And as you said, going back to your original point, this is attorney Jeremy Rosenthal on News Radio 1040 WHO. Jeremy, when you've got a conservative court, that makes it that offers a real opportunity for Second Amendment advocates to continually challenge restrictions. I'm sure you expect this to continue with this conservative court.
Right, and it's been a 6-3 split for a few years now, so you've already seen a handful of things go by the wayside. So the news has mostly been good, but not entirely. There was a Supreme Court opinion just last year where it talked about the right to own firearms and possess firearms with domestic violence in your background. That restriction was upheld. So it's not been all, guns and roses, pardon the pun, God, that's bad, for Second Amendment advocates, right? It hasn't been all perfect, but they're being very aggressive here, obviously. And I mean, look, when you're these groups that are advocating these positions, you've got to probably think we're never going to have a 6-3 advantage again, and if we do, it might not be for long. So let's get it while we can, and then just let the chips fall where they may.
Attorney Jeremy Rosenthal, and Jeremy, 80s metal references always welcome on the WHO Radio Morning Show, so you will be invited back. Thanks for joining us on this critical issue this morning, Jeremy.